talking about Africa podcast today, which is going to be tomorrow. Some people already celebrating today. Can you hear me, Jen? Jen, if you can hear me, let me know. Am I audible? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I thought I was not audible. Some of the times when you go online, you never get to hear these people. I think I may need to start here in a little bit. But anyway, guys, today we are we're just shooting the breeze, talking about Africa Podcast Day. This is just one of those days where Africa podcasting is recognized and people, take some time off and look into podcasting, how podcasting is done. There used to be an event some time ago. I think when I just started podcasting 5 years ago, that used to run on the weekends. And I remember it was my first time. I got into it and went to New Orleans. I was on my way to New Orleans, actually. And I remember in the middle of the night, I got there and started watching it. And it was great. I remember that first episode was Kevin Mochiro was there. And I keep forgetting who did the show. But I remember Kevin Mochiro, and there were some two guys who. There's actually a guy from South Africa who came and talked about his podcasting, and he was a comedian. And that's the day I met our white label American, and we got on together and we had a chat. I didn't want to go online, but after a couple of years, we did meet up again with white label American. So that's how the whole thing started. And well, I can say it was 5 years ago when I was just starting podcasting, and I didn't know that there was Africa Podcast Day that really celebrated podcasters in a way. Now, I am an African and I am a podcaster, but I live in the diaspora. So my journey into podcasting is different than most people who are into their their journey into podcasting, because I think the way and how to start a podcast is different than other people who do their podcasting. Shout outs to Afros on Audio who joined us on TikTok. They have been very instrumental in celebrating us as African podcasters. I know I'm an ambassador of Afros and Audio. I still wear their shirt. I did wear your shirt when we went to the Podfest. So when I believe in a team, I always get into wearing their labels and carry around, and I'm proud of, being authentic. And if they're authentic and they believe in community, I'm good with that. I'll start off with Simmer Box. Simmer Box by Dana Seda. What do I say about them? Great starter to podcasting. I've been to their studios numerous times. Dan has always helped me start off, with the audio. I've not done video with him. I'd love to sit and do video with him and possibly collaborate and do something from the agenda of being a diasporan. I like having to be a diasporan podcaster and work with the diaspora. Now, I also have to mention Jen, who is also with Woke by Accident. She's one of the people that we do collaboratives. I'm just throwing things out there. But let's get back to Afros and Audio. Jen, shout outs to you. Your support has been numerous and immense. I do love it all the time, and I mean, this is what podcasting is about. Podcasting is about collaborations, especially when you're in the diaspora. You have to collaborate with other people, and it's more like international collaboration. Yeah. So let's go with Sema Box. Sema Box is a great place. If you're in Kenya and you want to do podcasting, go in there. The production is great. There's also AfriPods. AfriPods are a game changer. I mean, you can host with them. You can do a lot. I The guy who runs it is Kevin, and there's another lady who is I don't think she's based in Kenya, but she comes back and forth. But what AfriPod does is it gets you together as a collective of podcasters, and I think to me it brings in the whole dynamics of having anyone in the continent of Africa, even if you are in the diaspora too, you are included in the collective, and they send tidbits out there. As far as collaboration comes, you will definitely be able to collaborate with as many people as you can, because they have a database where if you want to listen to music, or you want to listen to podcasts or whichever genre, you just go there and you'll be able to listen and hang out. I can say a collective is where we hang out. The other one is APVA. Now, I belong to APVA. APVA is really huge. They do voiceover, and they also do podcasting. Now, they have a WhatsApp group, and they're very strong, originating from Nigeria. I think that's where they're based from. But they're also willing to have small enclaves here and there from different countries. They have representatives, and one thing I can say is that's one of the top ones to actually come out in the mix of podcasting, and having to be out there. They give out awards. I have been part of the nominated in their award sessions, and it's been a great experience, I must say. 3 times I've been nominated, and diaspora on the diaspora award, and I've come up strong with some strong people who are out there, and I've loved the whole experience. Getting yourself into the mode, and when they do their celebration, I mean, it's online and it's live, and it's just I mean, hey, the experience is great. There's no award ceremony that you would go to that is online that exemplifies African podcasting like it is. Now, another interesting one is Jollof Media. Now, Jollof Media was there before, and then they tend to have kind of moved out of the scene and came back heavy last year. They have these great promos, and they have this great way of especially if you're a podcaster who is not on on not high up on the list, let me put it like that. And yeah, Jen, we were also featured. Yes, shout outs to Jollof Radio Media. If you're not really featured, they'll make sure they feature you. They'll make sure they put you on the map, highlight you to feel inclusive. And it doesn't matter where you are, and it doesn't matter who you are. You could be African American, you could be, diaspora, and you could be from Africa. As long as you rock with Jollof Radio, they'll rock with you really hard. So these are one of the collectives. But another one I was going to talk about is John Savage has this network of South African podcasters. Now, I remember one time they kept on saying this is there's South Africa and there's the rest of Africa, and I get it. It's not that they're anyway trying to call out on Africa or saying Africa is or they're different or they're special. No, it's just how the dynamics are. It's something that you can sit down and talk about, even podcast about it. They are different, but John Savage has always been in the media runs and media world. You'll see him everywhere. He's on Instagram, heavy on Instagram, and he'll tell you where he is. He passes by in the United States. Podfest movement is where he likes to hang out. I've seen him there, not seen him, but I've encountered him. But the last time when he was in Dallas, I didn't get a chance to meet him. But what I'll say is, it it's a great. He has a great thing going on, and it's a great thing to watch him how he's grown the South African collective. Um, One thing about the South Africa group of podcasters, they have created a guild of South African podcasters where it's like a network or a union of podcasters that they're developing, and I think that's A1 if you talk in terms of how you want podcasting to go into and elevate podcasting into whereby you can dictate some things that you would like. Uh, I've always thought that diaspora podcasters should get there in terms of having to make themselves stand out and also having themselves to be part of something. And we have equipment, we have access to a lot of things, but I don't know. Um, I feel that we haven't gotten there yet. Times we have tried, but on the African continent, they're doing it in a different way. Now, things are different. The way things are done in Africa and the way things are moving around in Africa are really different. So when you look into podcasting in terms of the African continent, I think it's in terms of the African the way Africa is shaped and how Africa is, let's say, was colonized by going back to the colonialist and how things happened in Africa. You will realize that there's the north and there's the south and there's the middle. There are francophones, they speak French, and then you have the Portuguese somewhere in the middle of not middle but somewhere to the south, and then you have the English speaking country, and then you have the extreme north that speak Arabic. All these do matter, but they also create an interesting dynamic when it comes to podcasting. Now I'll tell you this: I have been doing a 30-day podcast challenge. I did last year, and this year I'm going to do it again. And one thing I cannot help myself is say, hey, I wish I would learn to speak Portuguese, but that I can't. I wish I could learn to speak Arabic. I can't. French, not that good. Um, when you look at Ethiopian podcasts, and this is what I discovered, a lot of them actually don't use English. They use Amharic, which is their native tongue, and you kind of find it hard to decipher that. However, this is what it is. You cater to your audience. Part of podcasting, and you you'll always get into this aspect when you're trying to look into which podcasts, because I have to do 30 days of podcasts where I search 30 days of listening to one podcast a day, and then I do a review at the end of the week of all the, is it 5 podcasts that I've done? Yeah, 5. Then after that, at the end of it, I do a one full 4-week episode of what I've learned and what I've gotten to, and then that includes a blog. It includes video, and sometimes I also get in touch with whoever did the podcast. What I can say is you do get a response back. Some of them, some may have just stopped podcasting altogether, so you may not get a chance to talk to them. But some do respond back, and you create these friendships. There's a project that I'm trying to do right now. I'm not sure, but this is part of what the year. In the beginning of the year, you have your goals and what you want to do. So this year, I'm moving it a step further. Even though I'm still going to do that 30-day challenge. I've also advanced to where I'm asking people to let me know who they would want me to put in for their podcast, and then maybe share a document that's out there, and then I go in and get that document, and we have a conversation with the person. I go check and move with it. So it's going to be interesting going through this 30-day challenge. And one thing is, there are conversations that I want to capture, and I want to start something for doing the challenge. I think it's my way of paying homage, or some people say homage, to the African, the African podcasters, because without them, I would not have stories to be able to speak about in Africa. We have great stories and stories of our own which have never been told. One thing about the African stories, if you want to know, is that our history is never written. Our history is passed on through stories by the fireplace. And podcasting is something that has come to where records are being kept. And we're now able to keep great records. And I think the future is great. And there's so many stories that we haven't talked about, we haven't shared. Some of them have been passed on, and some of them may never be shared because some died with the elders, especially with this change of when you move from the city, from the village to the city, there are so many things that happen. It breaks the community, and one thing, when the community breaks, some of these stories get lost. But for those who have been able to pass on these stories, I think this is the time to capture these stories and put them together, compile them, and have such great stories. Will we have a future in the stories? Yes, I think we'll be able to create great stories, and we'll be able to have, I think, a diary or libraries worth of stories to tell. The thing about the African story is that some of these will or may change the narrative of putting the Africa on the map, or putting the African man on the map, because I think for a time we may or have been left out of the idea that we are something. And I believe, when you go through the history, a lot of things came from Africa that may not have been told. Like they said, one guy said, till the lion tells his story, the hunter will always give praise to himself. So I think in that narrative, I think we're the lions. We have to come up with our stories and talk about our things, talk about our famous wars that we fought, talk about all these other great things that have moved mountains, because those are the stories that our kids have to learn and then move ahead. Uh, when when I came to the US and started doing podcasting, or when I got into podcasting, Africa Africa Podcast Day is really special. And we sometimes people take things for granted. Not always, but we usually want to take a day. We just call it, okay, we say it's Africa Podcast Day. But what does it exactly mean? It is a day when Africa is looked at as somewhere on the map of podcasting, right? Nobody else has this day but Africa. So let that, let it marinate a little bit. And maybe I may be too, how do I call it? Philosophical. Maybe the word is philosophical. But I think part of it is the fact that I'm looking at an age that's coming up where, equipment is coming, you have technology, I remember when we started up, people would talk about having these phones to record your voice when we started podcasting. But as time went on, you found that people were now moving over from phones to utilizing other stuff like mics. Mics are now available. You see them guys with them small mics like this, these tiny mics, and then they hold them like this and they talk to them. Those are That's part of the movement that is coming up as the new age of podcasting. I never when I left Kenya back in the day, there was no podcasting that you would talk about. There's this type of podcasting. I never knew that podcasting would be this big. Who knew? You know, but right now people are talking about podcasting. They have a lot of podcasts that are out there that we listen to and we watch. Now, I have to tell you something, and this is not a, this is not this is not this is the reason why I did the 30-day podcasting. Okay, I don't listen to podcasts. I don't listen to my podcast. And at one time, I was told, "Do you actually listen to your podcast? Do you listen to your podcast?" And I was like, "Wait, what do you mean listen to your podcast?" Yeah, it means you sit down and listen to the podcast again when you're editing, because most of the time I have to do my edits. So when I'm going to do my edits, I I go and you know run the edits, but I don't listen to the podcast. So this is where you say, "Hey, listen." Sorry, I'm kind of rambling here. So, do you listen to your podcast? So I do listen to my podcast, and the reason why I'm doing this 30-day challenge is because this gives me an excuse to listen to podcasts. So now I have amassed at least 30 podcasts that I've listened to, right? So you can't tell me that I haven't listened to a podcast. I've listened to 30 podcasts. And this year again, I add 30 onto those podcasts, onto the ones that I've gotten to look at, fresh, brand new, never listened to. I don't go back to a podcast that I've listened to. So that means by the end of this year, in year two, I'll have listened to 60 podcasts that I'll be aware of. I may not remember all of them, but I will have added to my arsenal. One thing I will say about listening to the African podcasters and having these connections, because sometimes the people will actually come back and connect with you, you have this great feeling of being heard and being noticed. I remember one of the Zimbabwean podcaster. I listened to a podcast and she mentioned this and said, "Hey, can you imagine? I was just sitting over here, and then somebody told me, 'Hey, you have a review of your podcast,'" and she was so enthusiastic. And to me, it wasn't to be recognized; it was just to try and know the podcaster, so I can say, hey, I know the podcaster. Um, some I learned about food actually. Some of them had talked about, yeah, they talked about food, and that was great. This was from Uganda. Um, there was also true crime. Can you imagine? There's a true crime for Kenya. I never knew that there's a true crime podcast. Um, but what else do we have? Um, there was another one where somebody talked about what did they talk about? They actually talked about um, 50 things that happened in Zambia, and it was just a podcast about 50 things that happened in Zambia. And um, you might want to go listen to it. And some of these festivals you'll never get to hear of them unless you live there, unless history teaches you. There's another one from Seychelles, uh, Najma Amla. I don't think I'll ever get to hear about her, but she talked about her country of Seychelles. There was, I'm just going to a couple of them, well, not a couple of them, some of them. And um, what what I found was you actually have you actually get in touch with the podcasters. You actually have a great feeling of having been of putting something or putting somebody out on the map. Now, you learn a lot of things with podcasting. I know as we go along, uh, some of you will be podcasting. Some of you are starting podcasting. I'm talking to the podcasters who are out there that are starting with podcasting. If you're an African podcaster, this probably is to you. Try and get out there and look at the world, and don't ever give up. There's so many stories that you can go. Some stories you can start off small, pivot. You can always pivot and create another story. You can create 2 or 3 podcasts, run with all 3 of them, and then pick out one. Yes, they say maybe focus on one thing at a time, but sometimes you may just have to go do 3 of them, and then at some point decide which one is best. You know, find out who are you representing. Are you representing a culture? Are you representing are you representing people, or are you representing an idea? You know, you might come up with an idea of what let's say, for example, what an idea of what Africa will be, and that might be something that you may run with. People are going to be interested in looking to what the idea of Africa might be, or maybe a history of Africa. See, you never know what you are able to pursue if you start. And one thing is, just go ahead and record. As I said, the equipment that you have, you could possibly start with a phone, record your phone. Nowadays, phones are great in recording. Always know one thing: episode 1 is never going to be the same as episode 10. Go check. I dare you, look at all the podcasters that have sorry, I always have this going on. That's my time. That's my time. These are the bloopers that you have. Actually, bloopers are good. Don't ever say that they're bad. I enjoy my bloopers. They keep me they keep me going, and I use them as bait for people to kind of watch them in the end. However, we're talking about the idea of being the African podcaster, and challenging you to look at the first episode and the 10th episode. Those are going to be different. They'll never be the same. And I think if you started off with the phone, and I've seen some of the African podcasters, you start off with a phone and you just record on the phone, or you record using your regular phone, and maybe after 10 episodes you get a camera. After the camera you get to move much better, you get studio time. Studio time is expensive, but shout outs to Semabox have an incubator program where you go in there and they work with you, you create a podcast, and once you blow up, you have some kind of arrangement. I don't know what there is, but I think it's something like that. That's what an incubator program is. Now, if you get to that level and you go back and look at your first video, you will see an achievement. So that's why I always tell the podcasters, just try, get the idea, record some shows, and then start from there, and you'll be great. So don't ever give up on podcasting. Now, I have some people who've joined in. I would like to know more about the podcasts that you love to watch. Is it audio, video? Is it are you into audio podcasts, video podcasts? Tell us which ones you like. I think we can, if you can share on which podcast you like. I don't have. I already given you my top podcasts, so I don't have much to talk about when it comes to podcasts. I've told you about the true crime. There is 50 Things About Zambia. There's also what else? Man. Oh, I also found something called Zimrock. They have Zimbabwean rock. There was a time in somewhere. There's a time and a place. There was rock. Rock was an influence, and they have something called Zimrock, which is Zimbabwean rock music. You can go check that out. That's courtesy of this 30-day challenge. I found out that they had something like that. I think Kenya did have something, but this was a phase back in the 90s that Capital FM came into the... Capital FM is a new radio station that came in, and then they started doing the whole thing about playing rock music, because it was more English. So as they played that, people kind of got into the rock. So there's that dichotomy of the rock rock music. I think that's about what I would have. But back to back to the Africa podcast day. My goals and today, and why I wish to celebrate with this short. Is it short video? It's been a short video. To me, Africa podcast day will always stand as one day that I can be able to stand out as a true African podcaster. Well, if there's a fake one, I don't know. But this is one of the days that, like I said, is celebrated as a worldwide thing. So all podcasters get together tomorrow. They'll be probably running something online with regard to Africa Podcast Day, and this includes AfriPods. I know we did something last year for AfriPods. If you go back on to the Sambaza podcast. Oh, by the way, subscribe to Sambaza podcast, because we need the subs this year. That's our goal. That's our target for this year, is to increase our subscribers on YouTube. So if you go there, you will see something that we did for Africa Podcast Day. But needless to say, I think this is one day that all the African podcasters can say and be proud of their body of work that they've done. whether you're going to be in storytelling or you're going to be doing voiceover or studying the literature, religion, or languages, whatever it is that you are putting out there as a record, as an African podcaster. I believe that today, that's Africa Podcast Day, exemplifies the podcast and the podcaster that is African. So, with that, I'm going to end this, but I will say keep your podcast going. Don't stop. We have a lot of stories to tell. And as we keep telling those stories, we keep recording them. And as an African podcaster, I'm proud to be African. And I'll say good night and happy Africa Podcast Day. Bye. And Wasambazaji, bye.